All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our colleagues. I'm monitoring the waiting room and I see most of the colleagues are joining slowly but surely. Hi everyone. Welcome to this webinar and Alexia, I'm going to let you monitor that waiting room to make sure everyone can join. Um, Welcome to this webinar, this 1 hour webinar. Thank you for making the time for it. This webinar is intended to introduce the upcoming workshop that we're going to have in Nairobi on Sunday, 2nd August, so very soon. This workshop will be titled, just so you are aware of it, whenever you're receiving information from the CBD. This is the workshop, quote, informing the ninth replenishment period for the Global Environment Facility Trust Fund, lessons from past and ongoing biodiversity enabling activity and emerging monitoring priorities. So it's a long title because we have a lot to talk about. And again, today, welcome to colleagues who are just joining. The idea is to introduce the workshop and make sure that you're ready for it when you're joining, hopefully in person in Nairobi. So my name is Marion Marigo. I'm a senior advisor at UNDP. And I've been working at UNDP for about 10 years, and this time working on the GEF-A program for NBSAP and the Seventh National Report. And I'm here today with our team, in particular with Anthony Camo from UNEP, who is a program officer also at UNEP that I'm sure most of you know at this stage. Thanks, Anthony, for being with us too. So as I was saying today, the session aims to introduce this workshop that we're hosting on 2nd August in Nairobi. It's between SUBSTA 28 and SBI 7. I know not everyone in this call today will be able to participate in person, but for those of you who can, the workshop will be held from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. local time in Nairobi with lunch provided and lots of coffee provided. And we hope that we can have your active participation in that workshop. So as I was saying today, the webinar aims to introduce the objective, the structure, and the expected outcomes of the workshop, and making sure that the participants, you can reflect on, the key issues, the lesson learned, the priority topics that you would like to cover moving forward. We hope that the space, the workshop, but even today, if we have time, can be a space for discussion and interaction between the organizers and the participants. Again, the idea today is not to go over the questions that we're going to cover in the workshop, it's just to introduce the workshop. And I'm repeating myself because I see a lot of colleagues just joining now. Today's webinar is organized by the CBD Secretariat, UNDP, UNEP, with the financial support from the GEF, and is part of this GEF-A program on NBSAP and 7NR. Let's go to the next slide very quickly. Everyone is very well versed in Zoom right now, but you can activate your interpretation. Your microphones are muted. You're welcome to ask any question anytime you would like on the chat or raise your hand. I would encourage all of you to activate interpretation and select the channel that you prefer, either French or Spanish or English, and I'm myself going to the English one. So you can see the little globe at the bottom of your screen. Here we go. I am now in the English channel and you should be able to hear me on the different channels. The webinar is recorded. We will share the recordings in the different languages afterwards, and we will share the presentation as well. Let's go to the next slide very briefly. On the agenda, on the screen, you see the agenda. So we'll have an overview of the relevant agenda items for SUBSTA 28 and SBI with Gillian Campbell from the CBD Secretariat. Then we'll have an overview of the in-person workshop, the one on the 2nd August by Anthony Camo. And then we'll have a big interactive session with you with some questions for you that, again, I'm counting on your active participation so we can get the most out of it. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, the objective of the session is to introduce this workshop, to present the guiding questions that will be discussed on 2nd August, but also to start collecting feedback from you on the relevance of those questions, the elements you need to be prepared and come prepared to the workshop, and ensure effective communication before the actual workshop. So again, and I see more people are joining, the idea is not to do the workshop today, it's to get you ready so that you can come with the right information to communicate during the workshop. Next slide, please. Let's get going. I see that we have a good crowd participating. So, Gillian, I might turn over to you to just give a bit of context and maybe introduce the relevant agenda items for Substa 28 and SBI 7 for the participants today. Thank you so much for being with us. I see there's another Gillian joining, so I know that you're uh, doing the microphone thing.
Yeah, I was trying to get it to work. Can you see me and hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So, um, as probably many of you know, the global review is coming up at COP17, and this is the midterm review of the framework. So it's the opportunity to see what progress has been made towards the implementation of the KMGBF since its adoption in 2022. This is an agenda item that's coming up at both SBSTA and at SBI. SBSTA will consider the scientific, technical, and technological aspects of the global review, and SBI will consider the implementation aspects. We've just done a series of webinars on this that are available on the website. So if you want to hear about the SBSTA and the SBI agenda items related to the global review, I encourage you to go and look at that. So what I'm really going to do is to mention that it is this moment in time where we are looking at how we have fared so far in the implementation of the framework. And this includes how countries have set their targets and how countries are monitoring those targets. And I think that this is what sets us up well for this workshop is that we can look back and say, okay, well, what went well in terms of developing the MBSAPs? What went well in terms of developing the national targets and the national reports? And what didn't go well? And in the national reports themselves, one of the things that, of course, is new is this monitoring framework and reporting on the indicators, which brings us to the second part of the workshop, because this is a need that many countries have identified in their national reports, is a need to improve their monitoring systems. People really did make an effort to use the monitoring framework. So you had all countries using some of the indicators, at least one indicator or binary indicator. 90% of countries used at least one headline indicator, but it was patchy across. So the highest indicator use was for the indicator related to protected areas, which of course is a very well established indicator. And then you had, less indicator use for the targets related or the indicators related to pesticides, land use, or land tenure, which is the 22.1 of Indigenous people in local communities. The indicators related to subsidies was another one that, I think parties really struggled with. And so I think moving towards the eighth national report, this is the opportunity, while it's still fresh in everyone's mind, to say, okay, well, what went well? What can we do so that when we come to the eighth national report, we're in a better position to do the report and, of course, to have data. And that data is not just used at the global level, but it should be used to guide how you implement your own MBSAP and see where progress is happening and where it's lagging at the national level. So we very much hope that this will be an interesting discussion for everyone. And the monitoring framework is also on the agenda for Substa 28. But it is this time where we've only just finished this round of national reporting. And so we're not, I think, so ready to say what we're going to do next in this discussion at Substa. It's more just reflecting on what has worked and what hasn't, and let's set up a process so that by the time we get to the eighth national report, we're in a better situation. Thanks.
Thanks, Gillian, for providing this information and context. Colleagues, if you do have questions for Gillian, feel free to raise your hand. The idea is not necessarily to discuss just the agenda items here. As Gillian mentioned, there has been and there is a series of webinar organized by the CBD to provide information and context on those agenda items. So I would, if you have questions specifically on that, I would recommend that you refer to those webinars. But nonetheless, if there is any pressing questions for Jillian, feel free to raise your hand and we can take one or two questions before we dive into the 2nd August workshop. So let me just share and check the list. I think Jillian is pretty clear. I don't see any questions for now. But if any are coming later on the chat, we'll make sure to share this with you. So I'm sure it's a very busy time for you, Jillian. Thank you so much for being with us. And then if you have to run to other emergency, feel free to. We're going to continue our session then, as I was mentioning, by diving into this workshop that we're organizing on 2nd August. And for that, we have a little presentation. I'm going to turn over to my colleague Anthony Camo from UNEP to present the different elements of this, and then we'll focus specifically on the questions we'd like to address during this workshop. So Anthony, good afternoon for you, and you have the floor.
Thanks, Marion, and good hello, everyone. My presentation will delve around the overview of the workshop, including the objectives, the structure of the workshop, and the expected outcomes. For the purposes of those who might have come late, or rather joined late, the workshop is intended to be on the 2nd of August, and it's jointly hosted by UNEP, UNDP, the CBD, and the GEF. And it's on informing the 9th replenishment of the global environment, the GEF funding, looking at the lessons from past and ongoing biodiversity enabling activities, and emerging monitoring priorities. It will be a full day workshop, so starting from 9 to 4 p.m. With a couple of breaks in between. And it's structured in a two-part series. The first session will focus on lessons from the implementation of the GEF biodiversity enabling activities, and the part two will focus on monitoring needs and priorities for GEF 9. The workshop aims at fostering peer learning and dialogue among parties at a critical transition period between the current enabling activities, biodiversity enabling activities, and the next phase of support for biodiversity implementation, monitoring, and reporting. The next slide. As you know, parties implementation of the GBF requires that parties strengthen their national biodiversity planning, implementation, monitoring, and reporting systems in an integrated and sustained manner. The GEF has, since the adoption of the KMGBF, supported through a number of enabling activities, including the Early Action Support Project that most countries have finalized or coming to an end, and the umbrella program for MBSAP's update and national report that assists countries in their process or efforts to update MBSAPs, align national targets, and also prepare the 7th national report to the CBD. By now, most countries have already concluded the Early Action Support Project and have made substantial progress in the implementation of the GEF-8 umbrella program for MBSAP's update and 7th national report. Parties, at the same time, parties and implementing agencies are preparing for the next phase of support through the GEF-9 replenishment, looking at supporting the needs of countries in monitoring, but also preparation of the 8th national report. Experiences from implementation of biodiversity enabling activities have generated valuable lessons regarding stakeholder engagement, the technical support needs, knowledge management, experience sharing, as well as challenges and persistent challenges. Next slide. In parallel, enhanced monitoring framework has increased the importance of robust national monitoring systems, including the generation, management, analysis, and the use of indicators. Initial findings from the MBSAP revision and 7th national report suggest that many parties continue to face significant challenges related to indicator selection, data availability, quality, baseline development, and interoperability of information systems, and long-term institutional and financial sustainability of monitoring efforts. Next slide. The workshop, aimed at, will open to which is open to CBD focal points, and the GEF Biodiversity Enabling Activity project leads is intended to strengthen the peer learning and dialogue among parties, implementing agencies, the CBD, GEF Secretariat at a transition time between the current enabling activities and the next phase of support for implementation, monitoring, and reporting. And therefore, this workshop will provide a dedicated opportunity for CBD focal points, technical partners, and implementing agencies to reflect on their experiences and lessons from implementing of the current biodiversity enabling activities under GEF-7 and GEF-8 cycles, identify good practices and common challenges and opportunities for improving future enabling activities support, exchange experiences and approaches related to national biodiversity monitoring and implementation of the Kunming Biodiversity Framework monitoring framework. The last objective is also to provide inputs to national monitoring priorities, capacity needs, and the expectations for support under GEF-9. So this will be an opportunity to engage and set what are the expectations under GEF-9 support. The next slide. As I said, the workshop will be structured in two parts. One reflecting on the lessons from the current support, the good practices, key challenges, experience, and recommendations to inform future support. And the second part will look at discussions that will focus on national capacity and priorities and opportunities for regional collaboration, peer learning, the types of technical support that have proven most valuable, recommendations for improving future biodiversity enabling activities, and the kind of support that will be most crucial for advancing implementation of the GBF. Participants are encouraged to reflect on approaches for stakeholder engagement and the role of national coordination mechanism for success. We will encourage everyone to draw on their country experiences, share concrete examples where possible, and in an open exchange with colleagues. The objective is not only to identify challenges, but also highlight solutions and lessons that can help strengthen future support to parties. Something of important to note is that we have suggested the groups you will see for the regional discussions, because there will be regional groups for discussions, and we are trying to ensure that all can participate and reflect with their peers, allowing for preferred language use. We will focus now on part one, and I invite my colleague Marion to present the dynamics and the questions for each of these sessions. Thanks, and over to you, Marion.
Super. Thank you so much, Anthony, for presenting the workshop in general. And again, colleagues, if you have questions on what we're about to discuss, which is the questions we're diving into during the workshop, or on the workshop in general, or any recommendation or anything, feel free to drop messages in the chat. This session aims to be interactive. It's not just Anthony, Jillian, and I talking to you. So if you have any question or recommendation, feel free to raise your hand or drop something in the chat. We'll be grateful for your contribution. So indeed, if we focus on part one first to remain logical and structured, as Anthony mentioned, during the first part, we'll focus on the lesson learned from the past and the ongoing GEF enabling activities. The idea is that we have an understanding, continued understanding of what support is needed for the future in particular. So participants will be gathered in those regional breakout discussion, as Anthony mentioned. We'll have groups in English, French, Spanish, and Russian. So hopefully, very dynamic discussions from everyone. And each group will be facilitated by colleagues from UNDP, UNEP, and each group will designate a rapporteur from among the parties that can then present in the coming back discussion. So in the morning session in particular, the participants will focus on three aspects. They will focus on the success of the implementation of GEF enabling activities and what worked well and could be replicated. Then we'll focus on remaining challenges, the one encountered during the project implementation, including, capacity gaps, operation, institutional constraints, and how these challenges were or were not addressed, and where additional guidance is needed. And then the final question, maybe the most important, is where we're going, right? What type of support is needed from the future GEF enabling activities, especially when it comes to monitoring. So what we're going to do, and then if we go to the next slide, what we're going to do now is to show you the questions that we will discuss as groups during the session. So we're not asking you to respond to the questions now. The idea is that you or your colleagues who are coming to the workshop have seen those questions in advance so you can prepare responses and elements of discussions with your peers. So again, not everyone from every country is here today. We hear that. We will share those questions afterwards in a recording. But if you can, if you're participating, great, you can start thinking of the responses. And if you're not participating in a workshop in person, then please liaise with your colleague who will be in the workshop so that they can come ready as well. So as I was mentioning, the first part will be focusing on success, and we're hoping to tackle the following questions that you see on the screen. So what have been the main achievements or positive outcomes from your country's work on preparing and updating your NBSAP and developing the 7NR under the two GEF biodiversity enabling activities? So that will be the early action support that is now closed, and then the GEF-8 NBSAP and 7NR project. The second question, what do you see as the main advantage of early action support in GEF-8 program to strengthen capacity or learning for your country? Third question will be on what factors, such as national context, have contributed the most to the successful delivery and progress in your country. And then the last one is about the tools, approaches, and practices from your country that could be useful to other parties. So again, take those questions into consideration, and we appreciate if you can come with some elements of responses. If we go to the next slide, we also have questions around the challenges. What are the main capacity challenges that you have encountered during the implementation of this project? Have you addressed those challenges? How and were there areas with where additional support or clear guidance would have been beneficial? This is also a moment for us to discuss the difficulties of the implementation of the program. So we are expecting some elements of response there. And then the third part will be around the future support. And this one is really, really important. We have three questions mostly. What capacities, actually four, we're just missing a dot. So what capacities do you think should be prioritized for support at the national level? Looking ahead, what opportunities exist for stronger regional collaboration and learning? Which forms of technical support or guidance provided by implementing agencies and partners have been most useful and could be most useful in the future? And then, based on your experience, what recommendation would you make to improve future biodiversity enabling activity projects? So those questions are really what help us and our technical partner and the GEF to better design the upcoming round of enabling activities. So again, please share with us your input, your feedback. Feel free to consult with your team first and get some elements of response when you come in person on the 2nd August. If we go to the next slide, we also have additional questions if time allows. But we might not have time because that's a pretty dense workshop. But you can see those on the screen on approaches, national coordination mechanism, etc. That we will share with you if we have time. If we move on to the second part, as Anthony was mentioning, the second part is very much on the monitoring needs for the parties. We have heard, we being UNDP, UNEP, but also colleagues at the GEF, we've heard that there is a need for further support on national biodiversity monitoring, and then, needs for strengthening monitoring and reporting system to support the implementation of the GBF. So as in a previous segment, participants will be divided into those discussion group, and then you will have guiding questions. So the first theme is going to focus on the current status of the National Biodiversity Monitoring System. We'll invite a participant to share a bit of this about the status of their monitoring system, identify which component are already operational versus the one that remain under development, and in particular also the discussion around indicators, right? And the challenges with the use of some indicators. It's also an opportunity to explore the tools, the technologies, the platform, methodology that can be used by the countries for biodiversity monitoring. The second theme is going to be on the needs for future support again, and then what type of technical assistance and capacity building activities are needed to support the parties with their national monitoring, but in particular keeping in mind the 8th national report, and that will be directly an input to the GEF-9 that is going to focus on monitoring. So same as the first session, we have a set of questions. So can we go to the next slide, please? The first set of questions on the current status of monitoring. So you see that we here to have four. What is the current status of your country's national biodiversity monitoring system and your monitoring plan? Which component of your monitoring system or plan are already operational? Which one are in development? Specifically, which indicators are currently the most difficult to monitor and why? And then what tools, platform, technology, or methodology in your countries would be helpful and are being used to monitor biodiversity. On the next slide is still, I don't think this is current status. Is it current status? Actually, go to the next slide, sorry. Yes, so let's go back to the previous one. Current status, we will also ask you questions around the main challenges, not just what is working, but also what is not working vis-a-vis the data availability, quality, accessibility, interoperability. We'll ask you if there are major gaps in baseline data, methodology, institutional responsibilities, access to some tools maybe to better monitor and report on biodiversity. Would like to know what are the main institutional, technical, financial gaps that are affecting your efforts in monitoring? Are there existing coordination mechanism among the ministry, agencies, statistical offices, academia, data owner, other partner? It would be really great for us to have a bit more information on that. And then has your country identified national indicators, not just the headline one, but the national one that could be aligned with the KMGBF monitoring framework? Yes, no, why, and how can that be improved in the future? If we go now to the next one, Martina, thank you. We'll focus on the needs and the priorities. So here we also have detailed question that we're hoping you can help us answer or having elements of answer. So what types of technical support capacity building are most needed to strengthen monitoring and reporting effort? What are your priority needs for support for national biodiversity monitoring? What are the priority needs and areas of support for the preparation, specifically of the 8th national report? How could support in the GEF-9 help ensure ongoing monitoring, institutional ownership, sustainability beyond just the 7th or the 8th national report, right? Having the cycles we understand exist, but beyond that. Do you have any specific needs in using geospatial data? And what needs would you identify for strengthening the regional collaboration, shared methodology, or peer learning opportunities about biodiversity monitoring? So you can see that we're trying to have a national focus, but also a regional approach. And that's why we have those regional discussions. The GSCC is important, and there is an effort to have more regional cooperation. We're hoping that this can come through also your responses during the session. Next slide, please. All right, so these are the questions. Again, this is quite dense. This is a lot of questions that we will be asking for those who joined us later. The idea is not for you to answer those questions today. Those questions are the ones that are going to be asked during the workshop on 2nd August in person. What we're doing today in this webinar is just to introduce the questions for you to have an idea of what we're going to discuss and prepare as much as possible with your national team. So we're really counting on you for having elements of response and making this workshop as dynamic and interactive as possible with your peers, but also with the technical partners, the CBD, the GEF, and us as UNDP and UNEP, who will be present in the room. So we do have a few questions though for you, where I'm gonna ask you to be responding to some polls. However, before we go there, I would like to just take a moment to look at the chat because I've seen a few questions. So Lauren, good to see you. Well, not seeing you, but good to know that you're here. And I'm gonna read your questions out loud. I'm not sure if I missed this, but will any feedback be considered from the reports that have been submitted by the parties so far for the EIS and GEF-8? And BSAP and 7NR, it would be helpful to present what has already been recorded as a baseline. I am seeing more questions coming. So yes, so the idea, Lauren, to answer yours directly, on the part one, yes, there will be a quick presentation, probably from UNDP and UNEP on actually those findings, and what has been done in the implementation of the EAS and then the GEF-8 so far program. The idea is not to repeat necessarily the draft, I mean, the global report that the CBD has been publishing, that has been peer reviewed over the past month. So it's not going in detail for this, but we'll have some elements of response and some presentation. And what is not addressed in this presentation, we're trying to limit the number of presentation and how much we as implementing agencies are speaking. But if there is some relevant element from your country, for instance, that is not quoted or stated in this presentation, I would really encourage you to mention that in the group in which you will take part, right? So normally, yes, and if it's not addressed, feel free to jump in. Um, I have a question from Jean-François Moussa. I'm gonna switch to the French channel, sorry, because it's in French. Voilà, je change. La question, c'était bonsoir à tous. Donc,
Okay,
est-ce que
so the
le
question
questionnaire
was,
sera
hello
disponible pour
everyone,
collecter
will
plus
the
d'informations sur le
questionnaire
suivi de la
be
CBD?
available in order to have
Alors, si je le comprends
all
bien,
the
le
information
questionnaire, est-ce que
regarding the
c'est
span
Jean-François, est-ce que vous
follow-up?
parlez des questions
I
actuelles,
think,
celles que je
Jean-François, you're
viens
talking
de
about
montrer, ou est-ce que vous parlez
the
de
questions I
notre
just
questionnaire? Je ne
showed,
sais pas
or are
si
you
vous
talking
m'entendez,
about
Jean-François.
other
Si oui,
questions?
vous pouvez
I don't know if
ouvrir votre
Jean-François,
micro.
if you can hear me,
Allô?
Oui,
let
je
me
t'entends.
know.
Oui, c'est les questions actuelles que je pose.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it's
Donc
about the
voilà, donc
current
dans ces
questions.
questions, oui, on va les partager
Okay,
en avance,
yes, we
justement,
will share
avec
those
cette
questions
présentation et la
before
liste
the
des questions, on
webinar.
va l'envoyer
We will send the list of
aux parties et
questions.
aux pays avec lesquels on
All
travaille
of the
pour
parties
que
will
justement vous
receive
puissiez
these
faire la
questions
liaison
so
avec
that you will be
les
able
collègues qui
to reflect on
participeront
them.
à
You will
l'atelier
be
en
able to
personne. Donc
discuss about
là, on vous
them
présentait
before
juste en
the
général, mais
workshop.
on va
We're
communiquer
just
ça par
giving
mail
an
après.
overall
Pas de souci.
presentation, a general
Ok,
overview,
d'accord, merci.
but then we will be sending out those questions. Don't
Parfait.
worry.
Je
Okay,
vais continuer
understood.
en
Thank you
français
very
du coup,
much.
puisque la question
So I'll
suivante est aussi
continue
en
in
français.
French
Donc j'ai une question
because the
de
next
Ali
question is also
qui
in
m'a dit,
French.
nous avons
I have
également
a
des
question
questionnaires
from
ouverts à
Ali.
lien et
So,
suivre
do
pour
we
les
need
indicateurs.
the questions
Encore une fois, donc le
in
questionnaire,
order
c'est
to
Ali,
make a
si vous
follow-up on
parlez du
indicators?
questionnaire et des questions que je viens d'envoyer, enfin qu'on vient de
Are you talking
présenter, comme
about
je
the
l'ai dit,
questions that I just
elles seront
shown?
partagées en
If
avance
that's
pour que vous
so,
puissiez faire le
yes,
lien
we
avec
will
les équipes
share
nationales
them
qui
before the
participeront à l'atelier.
workshop so that
Ali, je ne
all
sais pas si vous avez
participants
d'autres questions
can
par rapport
reflect on them. I
sur
don't
les
know if Ali,
indicateurs,
if you
mais
have any other questions about the
Super, super. C'est
indicators.
la même question qu'un peu
Yes,
Jean-François,
it's the
c'est les
same
deux, j'ai la
question
même
from
question que Jean-François.
Jean-François.
super.
Jean-François, c'est la même question. Donc,
Okay,
ce sera
wonderful.
lié.
Yes, Jean-François,
Parfait.
say,
Eh
that's
ben,
the same
merci
question he asked.
d'avoir
Okay,
pu y
wonderful. Don't
répondre,
worry. Thank you
aussi
very much.
facilement.
Thank you.
Je vais
So I
repasser
just
du coup
asked, I just
à
answered
l'anglais.
both questions.
Gonna switch back to English and let a second for the
Okay, I'll
interpreter
go
to
back to
switch.
French. I'll go back
Exactly.
to English.
All right. Mohammed is asking us if we can share the PowerPoint. So that is what I just answered. Yes, we will share the PowerPoint and the questions in advance so that you can liaise with your national team. So just to reconfirm the report, Lauren, coming back to Lauren's questions on the national self-assessment that we have done annually. So yes, let's discuss on that, Lauren, because there is some countries that are willing to share those content on a self-assessment and some others no. So we're just gonna have to be respectful in the case by case. But if in your case this is something that you think would be relevant, certainly we can refer to them and then use this information to prepare the presentations. That's actually a really great suggestion. So thank you. Perfect. All right, so I don't see any hand raised or any questions in the chat for now. What I'm going to do is that we're going to start the poll. So the idea is that we had those questions that we shared with you. Right now, what we would like to have is some initial elements of response. So we prepared a few polls, very, very quick. Maybe Alexia, I can ask you to play the first poll, and then Martina, we can stop sharing the screen altogether. Normally, if you look at your Zoom, window right now, you should have a first poll on the significant outputs of the GEF enabling activities that have popped up. So we have a question and we have about 60 participants, a bit less. So I'm expecting you to respond and have a high contribution here. We would like to know already which one have been the most significant outputs of your country's GEF biodiversity enabling activity. So you can see on the screen the different options. You can see updated or revised NBSAP, the preparation of the national report, the 7NR, stronger alignment with the KMGBF, improved whole of government coordination, broader stakeholder engagement, stronger engagement of indigenous peoples and local communities, development of national monitoring system, identification of national indicators, biodiversity finance planning, national awareness of biodiversity priorities, strengthening institutional capacity, improve collaboration among national institutions. All right, I am letting colleagues respond. I have so far 16 answers, and it's coming up. Again, I would appreciate if everyone contributes to those questions. We have a total of 8 short questions before we free you. But these are really good indication. We're trying to make the most out of the sessions before we meet at COP. So of course the workshop is important. This session is really important for us. So I'm grateful if everyone can go back to their Zoom screen and then answer those questions. I'm going to wait for a few more seconds as more questions are coming in. I see about 25 answers right now. I would like a few more. Before we share the responses. All right, I see more coming. A few more. All right, Alexi, I think we can share that. The results are interesting and encouraging. So if you want to stop the poll and then share the result, that would be great. I see more answers coming in. All right, and then we'll share the results. So I see that 64% is updated or revised in BSAP. So this is very encouraging, although not everyone that has responded to the poll has said that updated or revised in BSAP is one of the outcomes. So that's important to note. Same for the 7th national report and then stronger alignment with GBF. This is great to know. Less so for for the whole of government. So there's still some support needed there, and especially with indigenous people, local communities. Definitely need for support for the national monitoring plan, although the identification of national indicators is quite high, so this is great. Hopefully some good conversations to have in the afternoon session, and then the rest is a bit lower. Okay, this is well noted. Thank you, Alexi. Let's get to the second one. So normally, colleagues on the Zoom, same, you now have a pop-up window that came out for the stakeholder engagement. What we're trying to see is which one of the stakeholders group you've been able to actively engage in your NBSAP update or reporting effort to date. So you have the option that go from relevant ministry, Ministry of Finance, National Statistic Office, Indigenous people, local communities, women, youth, academia, civil society, private sector, and local government. I'm gonna leave you some time to enter your answer. Great, I see some responses coming in. Thanks, colleagues. I see more responses coming in. I'd like a few more. Okay, I see a few more coming in. I'm just gonna give a few seconds for you to respond. All right. We have about the same amount of responses from the first poll. So Lexi, let's stop sharing and just share the results. Also great to see that most of the respondents have responded that relevant ministries have been involved. Academia has been also involved, as well as the civil society, and then a bit less the private sector, but this is something that is becoming increasingly important as well. It looks like indigenous peoples and local communities are still not systematically involved. So this is good to note, and to continue working together on that. Women's group, youth, medium, and local government a bit low as well. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Let's go to the third poll. Same, I'm gonna ask my colleague Alexi to pull it up. This one is very short, very straightforward. It's gonna take about a minute. Have you been able to cost your NBSAP and or your monitoring plan? Yes to your NBSAP, yes, your monitoring plan, or your country doesn't have an NBSAP yet or doesn't have a monitoring plan yet. So this one is straightforward. We also want to share those responses with our colleagues from Biofin in particular, since they're also implementing a big enabling activity right now. So asking everyone to have a quick response to this one. All right, a few more and we'll be exactly at the same level as the previous polls. Last seconds. All right. Let's share the results for this one. That's very encouraging, at least for the NBSAP. However, not able necessarily to cost the monitoring plan, and a significant number have indicated that neither the NBSAP and or the monitoring plan is ready yet, so obviously cannot be costed. This is well noted. Thank you. Let's go to the next poll. I want to make sure that we are finishing on time at the top of the hour. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being you're very, very not confident, and then 10, you're very, very confident. How confident are you on the readiness for implementation of the NBSAP? So if you say 1, that means you're not confident. 10, you're very confident that you can implement your NBSAP. Great answers coming in. This is particularly important for us as we are working with other entities that are supporting the implementation of the NBSAP. As you know, GEF enabling activities do not necessarily focus on the implementation, more so on the readiness for implementation. But we're communicating, insights to other colleagues. I would like a few more answers to come in so that we have the same number of responses as the previous polls. Okay, last seconds. All right, let's share the results that are somewhat positive. It looks like 25%, 28% have given a 6, so that's very average, but 25% have also given an 8, which is encouraging. But that being said, there are some colleagues that have indicated that they do not feel confident, less than 5, 5 or less, for the implementation. So this is something to continue working on that we can share with our partners for sure. Thank you, colleagues. Next poll, please. This one is going to take just a second to read the different challenges, but we would be grateful to understand what are the main challenges you have encountered during the implementation of the GEF enabling activity project that is valid for EAS and that is also valid for the GEF 8 that is ongoing. Again, on your screen, colleagues, I know I'm asking you active participation, but please look at the different options. I'm going to read them to you as you go through. Lack of suitable national expertise, effective whole of government and whole of society, meaning engaging the right actors take time, data availability, data information systems, classifications such as habitat types in the country, data sharing protocols, access to funds, human resources capacity in the country, operational and financial constraints, weak intersectoral collaboration, technical competency and skills, technology in general, that can be one, engagement of IPLCs. All right, I see some responses coming in. Thank you, colleague, for being super active. We really appreciate that. A few more answers are coming in, I see. This one is taking a bit more time because the answers are a bit longer. All right, last seconds if you would like to submit your answer. Okay. Let's share the results of Lexi. Thank you. So it looks like main challenges that I'm seeing, we have data availability, so that's really good to know. I think colleagues in the CBD also are there. I think this is something we have heard before, confirming here. And then the data sharing protocols is also basically data information, data sharing protocols is difficult. Access to fund, of course, this is something we're very aware of. And then financial operation and time constraint, we hear that. So these are the main one. Continuing to work on intersectoral collaboration is also very important. And then the rest is a bit lower, at least per the responses here. So thank you, colleagues. Let's go to the next poll, Alexi. We have just a few polls left. Which aspect of biodiversity monitoring remained the most challenging? So this is to help us prepare the section in the afternoon specifically. Again, data availability, the quality, access to data, indicator methodology, not having national baseline data, the interoperability between data sets and system can be one, coordination at the national level, technical expertise, financial resources, monitoring marine biodiversity in particular, monitoring ecosystem restoration, geospatial analysis, or reporting against the KMGBF indicators. Again, I see a lot of questions coming in. Thank you, colleagues. So specifically, this question is for the monitoring, and that helps us prepare the afternoon session on the 2nd of August. I'm going to give a few more seconds for answers to come in. Yes. All right. Thank you, colleagues. Alexi, let's share the results. So again, and in line with the previous policy, data availability is a very big one, followed close by the data quality, which is sometimes not high enough. It looks like financial resources, if you scroll down, is maybe the highest challenge. So having sufficient financial resources to undertake this effort. And then it looks like national basic indicator methodology, baseline data, interoperability is a high one. So all of these are also taken to our technical partners. I'm hoping that can be discussed in more details in this session on the 2nd August in the afternoon when we focus on monitoring. Let's go to the second last poll, please. In terms of support, which support have you found most valuable during the project implementation? So this is in the past. This is support that has been given during the early action support and the GEF-8. Which one were the most useful? Meaning which one could be useful to be replicated in the future? So we have different type of support. We have financial support, technical guidance, those regional workshops that were organized by the CBD, peer-to-peer learning, help desk that can be in person or virtual. Events in person at the CBD global meetings, like the one we're going to have on 2nd August. Documents and templates, one-on-one support directly with the implementing agency, online trainings and webinar like the one we're having right now, and then existing tools and platform like the UNBL and others, and then the communities of practice. I see a lot of responses coming in. Thank you for remaining so engaged towards the end of the webinar. All right. Let's share there's more responses coming in. Let's share the responses. There seem to be a trend. So financial support is obviously extremely high and is intended to continue hopefully with GEF-9. Technical guidance is appreciated. Online training and webinars. This is good feedback because we always wonder if those virtual capacity buildings are appreciated and helpful, and it looks like yes. And then to note, in particular for CBD colleagues, those regional workshops seem to have been also very helpful. So this is good to know when it comes to defining the future support. And then let's go to the last poll. Thank you. Specifically for peer learning, because as you know, for early action support in GEF-8, we're trying to put peer learning at the center of our activities. Which forms of peer learning have you found the most helpful to date? So is it through webinar, the exchanges, meaning peer-to-peer exchanges when there is a discussion, as opposed to webinars where one country is presenting, original dialogues, as we said, and then receiving documents and written case studies from other countries. This is the last question for today. And considering the number of responses, it looks like peer-to-peer is important. All right, a few last seconds if you want to enter your answer. Okay. Alexi, let's share the screen. And it looks like regional dialogue is really, really important and followed closely by those webinar and peer-to-peer exchange. So it looks like at least for peer-to-peer exchange, we have been able to set up a framework that is helpful for the countries and then that we can continue working on in the future. We're almost at the hour. I am gonna check very briefly the chat and answer quickly Will the workshop be entirely in person or hybrid? It will be in person, Candice. Mostly in person. We'll be able to share the findings of the workshop afterwards, but for logistical reason, it's hard to have those group discussion virtual, honestly. So we're having people mostly in person. I see a long comment from Maria Andrea, thank you so much on the importance of those regional discussion for monitoring and for reporting, and then providing input for the GEF-9. So, Maria, I don't know if we will have the pleasure to meet you in person. I think yes, yes. And please, we hope for your active contribution. This type of input is really important in the sessions. I really want to be respectful of everyone's time. Anthony, are there any other final aspect that you wanted to highlight before maybe we go to closing this webinar?
Thank you, Marion. I think you've said it all. You've nailed it. The most important thing to emphasize is that the success of the workshop will highly depend on, active participation of all. So please come, do share your experiences, your lessons learned, and let's engage in this workshop. I think that's all to highlight, and back to you, Marian, to close it. Thank you.
Great, perfect. We're doing it. We're closing on time and we're letting everyone go back to their next call probably. So thank you so much, everyone, for your participation today. Again, we will share the PowerPoint as well as the questions so that the preparation can be done at the national level, not just with the participants today. We're very, very grateful for participating here and being active. You will receive shortly also more information and repetition about the opportunity to meet up with us at Substa and SBI, whether it is through side event or whether it is through the NBSAP help desk that we have always. So thank you. We are looking forward to seeing you, some of you at least, in Nairobi. And please come prepare so we can have a great workshop on 2nd August. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you.
Everyone, have a good rest of the day wherever you are.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye. See you again.